This camera, one of those, or two, both those will probably be on you. This one will be on you. I think I look over. There's the commander. You
Okay.
just turned it on, so that's kind of what it looks
Wow,
like.
those lights are hot. They always talk about the lights being hot.
Yeah,
They
it's.
are warm.
That's all right.
That's okay.
We used to be in a smaller room.
That's what you're saying.
And there was
Real
even no
cramped.
air circulation, so it was even worse.
On top of that.
Well, remember the one guy that brought the fan in?
Yeah.
Remember Rob?
He was used to that, huh?
I think I'm ready if you guys are.
We're doing the students today?
It's a crazy week. The seniors on senior trip, they're in Hawaii.
Oh, that's
The
right.
juniors
That's
are
right.
out Echoing Hills doing, it's
That's right.
it's
Well, this is
mission
fun.
week.
This is good.
You're the guy.
So everybody's out doing stuff. And usually there's high schoolers here running cameras and all that. Today, they're not gonna move. They're
Yeah, in
just
fact,
not.
that's my son's girlfriend, brother, Austin Green.
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
I guess I know he was in Hawaii
Yeah.
on the trip. I
Yeah.
remember they'd talked about
They
it.
get back tomorrow.
Oh, do they?
Tomorrow, yeah. So, yeah, pretty neat.
Fantastic. All right.
Now, say that again, your
It's my son's girlfriend's brother.
friend's brother.
I mean,
Do that.
it's not as far away as it sounds. It does sound like it when you explain it.
Once removed.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're ready if you're ready.
All right.
And it's really a conversation between the two of you. You don't really have to mess with the cameras at all.
Okay, so I can look at you and talk
Yeah,
about
Just
I
it.
think
know.
of it like a radio thing.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah.
So.
So I start here?
Actually,
Over
that
there?
one's on you
Okay.
to start.
All right, okay.
All right.
We got it.
And I'm recording, so if you guys are ready, I will get out of here. Have fun. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Welcome to this edition of Lancaster Perspective. I'm Mike Miller. My special guest today, the engineer for the city of Lancaster, Bradford Grell. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
I'm glad you're here today, buddy.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
We have a lot of activity going on in the city, which you're well
Right.
aware of. And but let's talk first about the engineering department itself. What do people say? Well, what do they do? Because you wear a couple different hats there.
Right. I'm the city engineer in charge of the engineering department, and then also I'm the chief building official, so I'm in charge of the building department. We're located on the same floor because we do interact with each other quite a bit, so that's kind of a good mix there. So we're right next to each other, so if things cross over, we can talk to the right person. Don't have to send anyone to another building or something. But for engineering, obviously we keep track of all the public works type projects, public construction, water lines, sewer lines, storm sewer,
Wow.
street paving, that kind of work. Like I say, as in the building department, we regulate the private and commercial construction. So anybody doing, homeowners doing
Mhm.
remodels, new houses, to tract builders building tract houses, or to commercial end users, building like Walmart or those kind of things, where we'll review those projects and inspect them.
So what led you? Because just a little background: graduated of Cal State Fullerton,
Right, California.
and migrated back to Ohio. And what led you to Lancaster?
Like I said, I worked about 10 to 12 years in California after I graduated from college, in bridge design and building department work. And then I accepted the position as state bridge engineer for Ohio DOT in the central office there. So we ended up picking up the family and moving, and that was about 19 years ago, and we're still here. So that's what got us back to Ohio.
I know there's a lot of activity going on, and people are talking about the Main Street project and all. It's actually going pretty smooth. I mean, it's fourth or fifth
Yes,
week?
so this is the end of the fourth week. Like I say, the project started on April 7th, and we made the decision. Obviously, people think about projects that they're just real quick. I mean, we've been planning this whole. All the state routes are getting paved in the city, not just Main Street.
Right.
So, we've been working and planning this for probably about 3 years with ODOT, in conjunction with ODOT. So it takes quite a while to develop a project from inception to actually go to construction. So
That was one of the questions that I've been asked by a couple of people I told you were coming on. At what point in time did you start to do that? You said about 3 years ago. Was that just
a ballpark. It's generally, like say, when you get ready to start doing a project to do the design and get things ready and start the initial programming to the actual construction is about 3 years until it gets wrapped up.
Is there a pecking order of how those jobs are done? If 52 counties submit something or cities and say, how do they
Right.
prioritize?
It depends on your funding source. I mean, obviously the state route paving, is obviously a state route, so the
Mhm.
ODOT is involved in that. But then when it goes through a municipality, the municipality, has to share in the cost associated with that, during the project, and obviously ODOT works with the other
Right.
municipalities that they go through. So the ODOT uses their money, federal money that they get, and then the city has a thing called STP, which is State Surface Transportation Program, where there's money that comes from federal highway and it gets split up to
Mhm.
municipalities and jurisdictions. So we get approximately a little over $500,000 a year in that program.
Wow.
So what we do is we can use that money to match, like say we have to pay 20%. Usually
Mhm.
the mix with a state project is, state pays, somebody pays 80%. It's not necessarily the state, but
Right.
gets paid 80%, and usually you have to come up with 20%. So generally, that's where that money goes. That 500,000, we'll use that, leverage that money, and put it toward our 20% match. And then there's portions of this Main Street for the downtown portion where we wanted to change Main Street in the downtown area to all concrete. Now the state would just wanted to do asphalt, keep it like asphalt, mill it off,
Right.
and put it up. But we've had a lot of trouble down there with rutting and humps and bumps, and so we said, well, we want to do a nice 10-inch thick concrete pavement.
How
through
difficult
downtown.
was that to convince ODOT that this is the way to go?
It's not that difficult because we just have to pay for the
Oh,
extra.
there we
So as
go.
long as we have the money.
Okay. I'm with
So
you.
basically, they
Yeah.
figure out what the cost is to do a 3
Right.
inches of asphalt,
Uh-huh.
and then they figure out the cost of what it is to do concrete, and they
Right.
just subtract the two and say you have to pay the
You have to pay
difference.
the difference. And this concrete should last how long? I mean,
At least 30 years.
30
I'd
years,
say. Like
which
I
is
say,
at-
that's good compared to paving. You're gonna have to be in there a lot.
Right.
Asphalt paving. So, like I said, it's a full 10-inch thick concrete pavement. So it's a solid section.
now the project is about 5 weeks into it. How long until it's completed?
About 4 weeks into it, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, right now, like I said, we had a few rain delay days here, the beginning of this week and stuff, so, we jumped into it real quick at the beginning, kind of ran into some problems with some of the existing concrete under the bricks was thicker than we thought, so we had to kind of do, scramble and figure out what we wanted to do with that, so we decided to take everything out completely, and we had to pay extra money to fill back in, obviously, that
Right.
portion that we took out. But so today they're actually, I think they're pouring the last curb lanes on the section between Columbus and Broad. So basically that section will be totally done today, except for the crosswalk at Center Alley. And then they're pouring, right now when I left, I saw them, they're pouring one of the curb lanes going up the hill to High. So they should be done with that today. So the only thing they have left is just one curb lane coming back down the hill from High back to Broad. So they suppose they're gonna do that
Wow.
Monday. So that'll be done, and then the only thing left will be, they pulled up all the bricks, people see
Right.
there's bricks in the
Right.
intersections,
Mhm.
and that's just like 4 inches of brick with a little bit of asphalt under it. So they pulled that up, and we're gonna actually pour a red, concrete, in there
Really?
and actually stamp it. They have a stamping process where it'll be actually deep relief. It's not just gonna be a
Yeah.
surface thing, where it actually looks like brick, which is gonna last longer. So that's gonna be, they'll be able to finish that last part, and then they just do their pavement markings, and then we'll be ready to open back up. So the 6 weeks, was scheduled to be May 16th, be the opening.
Mhm.
So I think we're real close to probably hitting that.
Now, I know we had detours and all those things. They've worked out pretty well. I mean,
Yeah, it seems like, obviously people in town, if you go on 6th and Fair, you notice that people have, that's their alternate route.
Right.
So they don't necessarily come all the way downtown and go to Chestnut like our detour says and use Chestnut to go east. They cut over before that, but mostly out-of-town people are using that, and it hasn't been that
Right.
bad. I think people have found alternate routes to get places.
And I've seen some semis go to make the turns and all that. They're doing them. I mean, people are pretty well. If you see a semi trying to make this big turn, they back
Right.
up. And
Well, we try and keep obviously our stop. People notice at some of these intersections, we keep our stop bars where the car is supposed to stop, coming the other
Right.
opposite direction back a ways because the trucks have to swing pretty wide. And we've changed the signal timing at Chestnut and Memorial so that people can, that left turn lane is pretty short, but people can get through the intersection. We put some more green time on the arrows and things like that so that it works. But so it's to me it's surprising. Only hardest part is if I have to go across the street to the post office at work. It's hard to get across the street now. There's too many cars.
Well, I know that that's the biggest project that's going on right now, but there's other projects that are happening, but they're with levy money. They're not the same.
Right. We, like I said, we're fortunate enough that the residents of the community voted for our levy, street paving levy, which is going to generate about $2.1 million each year for the next 10 years. Last year, so this is our first year. We have a 2014 street program. It went out to bid. It's been awarded to Spires Paving.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
A local firm.
Sure.
So they got that at approximately a little over $1 million worth of paving this first cycle, and that we're going to get ready to sign the contracts here in the next week or so, and potentially start the project in the middle to the end of May to get the paving going on there, and then that's potentially that's about 55,000 square yards of pavement, approximately 3 miles of centerline roadway that's going to be put in there.
And obvious question is, how do you determine what streets get done first?
The first cycle this year was just basically we tried to focus, a portion, on one side of the town, and we're gonna, like on the western part of town, and then we're doing some alley work on eastern side of town. So we didn't want to do them all together.
Right.
But right now I have a request for proposal out for engineering firms to actually come in and actually get a rating of our pavement, all 200 centerline miles and 40 centerline miles of alleys. So that's gonna be in a couple weeks, the proposals, and that'll be our goal, is to get that information in and get the thing called a PCR, which is a pavement condition rating that ODOT uses. So we're gonna get them all rated, get them into a database with video of the streets, and then we'll use that with our average daily traffic numbers, and trying to balance all the other projects we do in town, water line work, things like that.
Right.
Obviously, we don't want to have a water line project and we pave the year before and they come cut right through the middle. We actually we joke that we give the water department and other departments an award if the first one to cut in the pavement after we've paved it. So we do our best to try and work with gas department, water
Right.
department, sewer department, and everybody so that we get that kind of work done before we do our paving.
Now, do you guys have like a monthly meeting or weekly meeting to talk about all those things, or how does that correspond, or is there?
No, like I say, we just have general coordination. Like I said, all of our department heads are really great to work with, and when we talk to each other, whenever we think something's coming up, we'll canvas out and talk to people. And we obviously do get together when we're getting ready to
Right.
plan our projects for next year for paving. Obviously, we'll use our new data that we have. And obviously, the biggest thing is, and people talk about, and that's one thing I'd like to get out is, certain portions of pavement probably are worse than others, obviously. And
How often do you hear that? Do you get to go to city council? Do you attend city council meeting?
I get to do that. That's part of my job description.
I spent 3 terms on the city council, and I remember when paving, people would come in and say, well, this has been paved since Aunt Ida was alive.
Right. I guess what it comes down to is like the way we're gonna pick pavements from like say year 2 and on is like say using this condition rating data combined with the traffic data, and those go hand in hand. Because like I said, if you have a small cul-de-sac that's a dead end, and it's got really bad pavement, but there's only like 20 cars a day that use it, you're probably not going to be high on those. You might be the worst pavement in the city, but we really can't allocate funding toward that. We're going to allocate it on a street that maybe has 6,000 cars a day that drive on it, and maybe might be in a little better condition, but it's got so much traffic, it's kind of more bang for your buck type thing.
I think people need to understand it's not a political decision. It's not somebody,
absolutely.
somebody walking in and saying,
no.
Yeah.
I don't. Someone doesn't just hand me a list and I do it. No, that's what this objective database is, and we're gonna have a process that's kind of transparent and obviously it's based on data selection, not seat of the pants. I think we should do this one and that one.
So you'll have to bid jobs out every year for the next 10 years, or?
Correct.
Just,
yeah. We perceive obviously just doing the levy paving program.
Right.
One job per year. I mean, they can be spread out across the city, but our plan is basically to do one contract a year. Obviously, we like to get it bid out as early as we can, with enough head in time to make sure that we get good prices. If you wait too late, then a lot of the paving contractors are already committed.
Right,
and so they'll increase their price because they don't really have the staff or the time to do it. But if you pay them enough money, they'll find a way to do it.
Yeah. So this 10-year project will that redo 60% of the streets, 70%, 40%?
It's really hard to tell, and that's one thing I like information like to get out is that the program of $2.1 million, like I say, the paving for the state routes just inside the city limits is approximately $7 million. So it's expensive to pave. So there's no way we can say that we're going to do with $20 million over 10 years that we can do 200 miles of pavement in the city. But what it is we're going to make sure that pavement we keep on top of it, we maintain it so that it lasts longer. When the cracks, after a few years, if cracks open up, you do preventive maintenance where you actually go out and seal those cracks so the water doesn't get in there, and it makes the pavement actually last longer. So we'll balance that preventive maintenance with new work, and like I say, we'll do as much as we can with the money we have, but there's no way that we're going to be able to repave every street every 10 years.
Coming into Lancaster, challenge that you saw for the city as a city engineer, I mean, was there something that you came in and thought this is something really, was it street, maybe something else that?
No, like I say, I mean, in general, with all municipalities, there's not enough money. I mean, like I say, there's more needs than you have money to address those needs, and so that's why you need to make sure you balance that. You come up with an objective process of where do I spend the limited money I have, and how do we do that? And like I said, all the departments in the city work real well together. So I was real surprised at that when I came in. Other places I've worked at, there could be adversarial relationships, but everyone in the city is on the same page and on the same team.
When you look at, I know we talked about street paving for a little bit, but all the other functions that engineering does, I mean, at some point, you come to a conclusion that, okay, I have to allocate 80% of my time over here and 10% over here, and I mean, is there a breakdown of where you spend your 60 hours a week? You work?
Well, it's hard. I mean, I actually did that recently. So we all talk about it because we are a limited staff. We don't have a lot of people, and like I say, we laid off people several years ago, and we haven't rehired anybody. So the issues we talk about, like I come in the morning and I have a whole list of stuff that I think I'm going to do, but by the end of the day, I might have marked off 2 things off that 10-item list, and I've been at the front counter, I've taken phone calls, and you just get pulled into many different directions. So sometimes you have to actually focus. You have to try and focus on certain things that obviously you meet your deadlines.
Back to street paving for just a second. When this is all done, this 10-year project, will you start again to look at more grants or when the levy goes?
Yeah, at 10 years, obviously the plan is before that is to try and renew the levy, because obviously we need a dedicated funding source.
Now, do you like that aspect of being the city engineer, that you're actually campaigning? I know Brian Kuhn, the service safety manager, and Dave Smith, but do you like that?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, what I like to do is I at least like to provide the data for everyone who's out doing most of the campaigning, to show that there is a real need. And I think that's one thing with the street paving is, everybody uses the streets and they understand the conditions of the streets. There are certain other things like, they don't see a water line, they don't see a storm sewer. When we say, oh, those storm sewers are crumbling and we need, stormwater money to fix them, everyone doesn't want to pay stormwater fees, but that's what helps maintain the full system of the stormwater. That when the water leaves your property, it gets into a pipe and it goes somewhere, and we have to make sure that all those pipes work to get it to where it needs to be. And maybe people don't understand that because they're all hidden.
Is it difficult when people come in? Because you get complaints all the time. I mean, it's a fact of life.
Somehow the engineering department is right at the top of the phone book.
Is that it?
Many issues, and I don't think it would relate to the engineering department, but we try and get everyone directed to where they need to be. I enjoy that. I like to try and, like I said, get information for people. Most people, sometimes they're upset. But when you actually, you know, tell them the
Explain it.
reasoning behind it, explain it, then they're like, oh, okay, well, I heard from so-and-so that, no,
Yeah.
that's not what
Uh-huh.
it is. This is why we're doing it. Oh, well, I guess that makes sense.
Have you ever been in a situation where somebody has said, I want you to come out and look at this pothole, or look at this, and you've gone to their residence or whatever it may be, and?
Oh, yeah, we're staff, myself and staff, we go all the time, and
We talked earlier, there was a layoff a couple of years ago. How many people do you have in the engineering department right now?
right, engineering department, we only have 3 people.
Including yourself?
Yes. So we're very,
Whoa.
very lean and mean. It's like, and we have a lot of work that we do.
So who else is with you besides?
Well, I have the assistant city engineer is Mitch Nolan, and like, sorry,
Right.
our
Yeah.
city engineer, or assistant city engineer Rick Mark just
Right.
retired after almost
Yeah.
30 years, just in fact, a couple months ago. So we had hired Mitch, who came from a local consultant, and the city council allowed us to hire him a little bit early, several months early, so that he kind of could shadow
Mhm.
Rick and go over and understand some of the processes that Rick was involved with, so that he could kind of jump in
Right.
at the end now. And then we also have an actual field inspector, and then we share a administrative assistant with the stormwater department.
Mhm.
And then our building department, we have 3 staff. But we supplement some of our staff with a plan review and inspection consultant, so.
So that's pretty lame. That's a run of.
Yeah, no, there's no extra. It's like, get somebody to do that while you're looking at them.
Right.
It's me or him, that's it.
That's exactly it. So if, I guess, as we live in a world of what ifs, if you had unlimited money, funding, what would Brad like to do, and what would he?
It would be nice to, like I said, to get a little more staff, some more engineering staff, because
Mhm.
obviously, you know, we do use some consultants to do some of our design work and so on, just because we just don't have the time. And that's one of the questions is like, well, you've got engineers at the city, why don't you design that? Well, because we're putting out fires and doing administrative stuff all day long, we don't have time just to sit in an office with the door closed and in the design, complete design of a project, so that's why
Right.
we have to use consultants. So I would like to be able to do more in-house design with staff, and also, there are a lot of things that we just don't have the time to do that would, help improve the city. So if we had a little more staff, that would be. Now, we do hire some interns,
Mhm.
which helps, some college interns, which give them some good experience. It's not that expensive, and, they are real hard workers. So that helps us in getting some of the stuff, like when we need to get things scanned or plans scanned. We have, all kinds of files
Sure.
and stuff. It's nice to get them electronically, where now, some of the issues now is, you can just click on a database and pull up a file rather than having to get up and go search through 3 different file cabinets. And so the interns are good at getting those kind of things done.
Do you get a chance to talk to other cities about what they're doing, or?
Yeah, I'm in a group, a Central Ohio City Engineer group that meets up in Columbus, and there's probably about 30 or 40 cities that are in that group total. And they have a monthly lunch meeting that we get together and we share stuff. They have an agenda, and it's a real good springboard for, if you have
Sure.
a question, hey, we're looking at doing this, what do you guys do? And we send it to the moderator, and he'll send it out to the 30 or 40 different city engineers, and they'll say, oh, we have a policy we wrote on this, so it saves us time and effort on things where we get a consensus. It's like, wow, everyone seems to be doing that, so that makes sense, so we go in that direction a little bit, so that helps rather than kind of inventing your own things.
When you first got into engineering, and when you got out of Cal State Fullerton, and what did you want? I mean, what was your big dream? Did you want to redesign?
Yeah, well, like I said, when I got at Cal State, I had my degree, Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering, and my emphasis was in structural engineering. So luckily, I interviewed in school, and actually back then, when you could get jobs, I got hired by the Los Angeles County Department of Public Works, and I worked in their bridge design office. So I really wasn't focusing on bridges, but that was a good opportunity for
Sure.
a structural background, and that kind of started off my career. And yeah, my grandiose ideas was I'm gonna go in, and Monday morning I'll start designing bridges. Well, Monday morning I was sitting at a drafting table drawing plans. It's like I went to school to draw plans, but that was a really good learning experience to start with. Is if you can draw something, it brings up so many issues. And how does the bridge go together? How do things work? How do things get laid out? And it gives you a really good understanding for. That was the starting of my career.
That's fantastic. Website, phone number, if people had questions about the engineer's office, or the building department?
Yeah, like I said, on the city website, I think most people can get to, if you just search, obviously, City of Lancaster, Ohio, you get to the main page, and on the main page, there's some buttons across the top, and, one of the buttons says departments. So you click on departments, and then on the left side, it lists all the departments in the city. So either there's a click on a button for engineering, and there's a button for certified building and zoning. So you can get to all those. We have basically all of our forms and everything are online. Like I say, our phone numbers are on there. Like I said, the engineering department is 687-6614, and building department is 687-6649. We're always there for questions. That's the one thing I like to do is that my building department hat is, if people are starting businesses or deciding to work on their house, it's, just a quick free phone call. Just call and
Sure.
find out what do I need? What do I have to do to get this process done? There's so many people who start projects and say, I didn't know.
Right,
Just a simple phone call for 3 or 4 minutes, and you could, start off on the right direction and maybe not spend extra time.
It's always better to call ahead and get to it.
Even sometimes I even say, hey, I don't even need to look at that. Not that often, but if you're the lucky one.
When Brad's not working on the 70, 80 hours a week, what's Brad doing in his spare time?
Well, coming from California, I like to sail a lot. So when we moved here, I didn't have a sailboat, but I bought a sailboat here a couple of years after we moved because I just had to keep sailing a little bit. And then we bought a second sailboat. One of my older sons, a catamaran, a small catamaran.
Yeah,
so we like
sure.
to sail on the weekends. I like to golf. Was a big snow skier in California, so went around all the West Coast. So we still ski. I teach my kids how to snow ski.
How many kids do you have?
I have 4 kids.
Okay.
Like I say, the oldest is 30, lives down in Georgia. To my youngest is an adopted little boy from China, but he's 13 now. We adopted him when he was 3. So, and we're in the process of adopting another little boy from China. Hopefully, we'll be traveling in the summer to do that.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So
That's quite a...
keeps you young. I think.
Oh, absolutely. I know.
No sitting around on Saturday. Sleeping in.
No sleeping in. I understand that. We just got a few minutes left in this segment talking with Brad Forgrell, the PE professional engineer for the city of Lancaster and the city engineer. Plans that this summer that you're going to do yourself, or?
Probably, like I say, just going to China for 2 to 3 weeks. So
wow,
that's usually you have to be there minimum of 2 weeks. So
no kidding.
So it gets to be. Then I guess it's not that bad when you're there, but when you get back, you just
Right.
the jet lag and the hard part is when you go over there, and obviously China's 12 hours different than here exactly. So, it's like one day you just all of a sudden say, midnight is now noon. And start acting that way for 2 weeks straight. Now all of a sudden you just, it's like get up. It's like, so it wears on you after a couple of weeks, and then flying back, and then it hits you, I think, when you get back. But.
Well, I couldn't let you go without talking about your new book, because you work for Brian Coon, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, and just, tell us a little bit about Brian.
It's a loaded question.
That's all right.
No,
I told him I was going to ask.
No, Brian's great.
Yeah.
Like I said, he's a very easygoing guy to work with. He's still in the learning stages. Obviously, there's lots to learn in the city. There's all the different departments and all the intricacies. So he's real good at he's not shy to ask. He wants to know. So he's like, well, what do you guys do with this? How does this? I got this complaint about this. It's like, well, this is how we normally work it. So he's kind of the learning curve, but I think he's a fast.
He's a good guy.
Fast learner.
Yeah, he will do well. Well, Brad, we appreciate you coming in and giving us an insight on the city engineers department and also the building department. We appreciate your time, and good luck with all the projects you got
Okay,
coming
great.
down the
I
road.
hope the information's useful to people.
Oh, absolutely.
And always check out our website. We have all kinds of information on there.
Thanks for tuning in to this edition of Lancaster Perspective. I'm Mike Miller, and remember, until we meet again, let's make a difference. That was great. We just finished that.
Wow,
that was
that
perfect.
didn't seem that long.